Thank you so much for presentation, Atsushi. Now we have the third speaker, Jorge de los Reyes Martinez. And he's the Chief Legal Officer of the Social Media Fidelity Management. And today he will be presenting about blockchain solutions for personal and professional development in a sustainable economy. So please welcome Jorge.
Hello, good afternoon. Well, as Kyoko said, we are going to talk about blockchain solutions, but I want to give here not a presentation just about use cases, but a call to action, and that we can use blockchain for good. As Kyoko said, my name is Jorge de los Reyes Martinez. I have like a different professional profile. First of all, I work in a marketing agency in which we are in contact with different public and private brands, and we also work with entrepreneurs. That's why I start working as a lecturer in new technologies, and also as an entrepreneurship enabler. That means that I've been working with different projects with startups, and also that led in the last year to a thesis. I'm actually a PhD candidate studying how SDG could be achieved by applying the blockchain technologies. And we are working with that also in a master in applied blockchain with different entrepreneurs. As we said, we are going to talk about blockchain, but I would like that some of you can please tell me why blockchain became famous. Some of you, please raise your hand and tell me what is the thing that made blockchain famous. Please.
They eliminated double spending.
Yeah, that's true. But what? Where is the hype of blockchain?
Cryptocurrencies.
That's it. Thank you. Well, first of all, what's Bitcoin? Yeah, thank you. Cryptocurrencies, that's right. But when we start talking about blockchain and cryptocurrencies, in that time, in 2008, there was a laureate of the Nobel Prize that said that Bitcoin is evil. What do you may think about this? Well, Paul Krugman said that it is evil because of, well, you may have heard of how Bitcoin is being used for different kind of operations that are illegal. But in this presentation, I would like to change that perspective and talk about how we can use it for good. Let's talk about what we understand for blockchain from my personal point of view as working in a marketing agency. We can see, for example, Twitter. In Twitter, we have different advertisements of invites in my ICO, or that I'm in a blockchain conference. Maybe one of you have been now tweeting about this conference. We have also Instagram, in which people are all the time showing off how they have been become famous with the cryptocurrencies, and more precisely with Bitcoin. In YouTube, we can find different tutorials of, that ask you for subscribing, and then they will tell you and teach you how to trade with crypto. In Facebook, well, you can be actually asking what are you doing there still, but you can also find some things about blockchain, taking into account that it's so difficult to talk about blockchain or cryptocurrencies. I'm working, as I said, with SDG, with matters of sustainable development. I upload a video just saying that I'm taking a PhD, and I got banned because Facebook thought that I was offering investment services. So, well, far from true. About websites, we can also find different profiles about news and also tutorials about what the field is doing with blockchain. But what I want you to take from this presentation is a different mindset about blockchain. Not the Paul Krugman from the Nobel laureate, but the mindset that most of the projects that are currently working, as we will going to see, are not precisely in the banking field or maybe in the crypto field, but are also some precise of out from the personal field. I mean, the best problems right there to work are often the ones that nobody else is working in, or at least they are not in the main focus of people. Now we are going to point out some facts. There are 570 million of agricultural holdings on Earth. That means that from that, the 90% are family farming, and from there, the 72% are of a small scale. But it is also true that family farming produces most of the food of the planet, but it gathers also the poorest people on Earth. In this way, we can say also that the GDP of many countries, when the country invests in agriculture, it doubles twice the wealth of that country. But that doesn't mean that it's growing its social progress index. We have another fact here. If existing water consumption trends persist, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization from the United Nations, by 2025, 2/3 of world population will live in a country with water shortage. That is a real matter, actually. We have a really close example, for example, in California, in San Francisco. They are applying blockchain with IoT because they have made a provision that actually in the same date, in 2025, they will suffer from water shortage. We have our last fact here, also coming from United Nations, that says that approximately 1.8 billion of the world's population have no legally recognized identity. This is because mainly identity is a fact that is centralized. Many of you, many of us have gathered or take this identity from a central authority. But there are countries in which these authorities doesn't exist, so they have no identity, or they are identityless people that are still living with no services and with no access to democracy. That means that currently we are 7.7 billion people in the world, and 23% has no identity. In this way is why I want to talk about sustainability. It's true that we can apply technology in different ways, but we have the Cronenberg's first law of technology that says that technology is neither good nor bad, but nor is neutral. I mean, in which cases are we applying not only blockchain, but the technology in general? This is where we can talk about the SDGs, and in case some of you don't know what it is, let's watch this video, please. Well, this is a brief presentation of what the United Nations did in 2015 after the Millennium Development Goals. These MDG were a challenge for all the countries in the world that were signing those agreements, and in 2015 they actually reach one of the most important goals of the MDG. This was to reduce the world's poverty of the world to 0.5%. I mean, that meant that when they agreed the SDG, the United Nations, the poverty was reduced for 50%. So they decided in 2015 to start another challenge for the global community. Also in 2015, it was the time in which Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk, with 8,000 experts on the field, signed an agreement, an open letter to warn about the risk about AI and blockchain. Actually, about the DAOs that are the decentralized autonomous organization, to prevent something that may ring a bell to you, that is Skynet. Maybe they are warning us from using artificial intelligence with blockchain. Currently we are in 2019 and the growth of the blockchain industry is just at 20%. That means less than $500 billion. But in 2030 that growth, being coincident with the agenda of the SDG goals, will reach more, I say it here, $3,000 billion in the industry, but today Deloitte bring a report that says that it will be $23,000 billion. I mean, that's absolutely crazy. I just want to point three ideas about this, about blockchain in general, and about SDG. The first of it is qualified money. Most of us have heard about cryptocurrencies, but there is also true that there are another modality of crypto that is called the colored coins or the qualified money. We have different projects working here with SDG. For example, Solar Coin uses, it's oriented to the people that is creating new energy with solar panels. They can sell that energy to their neighborhood. Gridcoin is working also addressing the problem that maybe some of you have heard, that while mining by Bitcoin, it is generating a high cost with energy that is damaging the environment. Gridcoin uses that mining not for solving mathematical transactions, but for solving scientist transactions. That means that they are working together with several labs and several universities to use that power of computation to solve the different problems that they are addressing as a university. For example, with the same goal, Coin is using that power of computation to solve the relations between proteins in the human body. We also have a case that is Carbon Coin that is selling what the companies can produce with the emissions, and they can trade with that binding agreements. We have also in Ghana a case that is called Bitland that is dedicated to give identity and also proper titles of property to the different people living in a region. It's a region actually with 10,000 people. Every ledger is using also blockchain and IoT for tracking diamonds. You may have heard of the industry of black diamonds. So Everledger is solving that social problem with blockchain. Transactive Grid has a lot to do with what Alexander has talked before about using energy and trading with that excedent of energy with blockchain. And I will take note of Lasut, that is the Uber of, or Cabify of the blockchain. Syrian economy, as I say here, has been strongly criticized because it has a big problem. Syrian economy promises that we are going, well, actually it promises efficiency. For example, Uber is another middleman, but is not offering the real car sharing. Lasut is using actually blockchain for people that want to share their car, but for sharing their car they are going to get crypto and they can actually use it just for traveling with the car, but with no middleman. Actually, it's also important from the point of view of smart cities. We have data from United Nations that said that in 2014, in cities, the population in average was of the 54%, according to the population, and in rural areas it was of the 46%. But in 2050 it will increase to 66%, and that will mean that in rural areas we only have 34%. Why is this important? Because Syrian economy has a dark side that actually is oriented in some cases to avoid regulation, and it causes a lot of problems, as we have seen here, maybe in Madrid with the taxi and Cabify. With blockchain, we can just take physical goods and embed and take it with IoT devices just for tracking and with no need of middlemen. So blockchain can offer to us just the possibility of a peer-to-peer interrelation. We also have the last thing we are going to talk about, that is identity. We have said that in world population we have 1.8 billion people that have no legally recognized identity. And I would like to bring to the table a case that I hear in Paris in the OECD Blockchain Policy Forum. One of the members from the panel, called Maria, that comes from Buenos Aires, wanted to study and, well, actually wanted to work in London. She decided from Argentina to try to solve her phone line. She just wanted to call to a company from London, from telecommunications, and get a line from London. But in that time, they asked her that she needed a residence in London to ask for that line. So she, after that, decided that she will, first of all, organize and sort out her residence. But in that case, she was asked to have a bank account in London. So she wasn't able to prove that she has an account there. Why? Because when she went to London and wanted to set up a bank account, she was asked to have a residence in London, and she can prove with her very good credit report that she was actually going to London to work, and she wasn't able to prove her identity, and it took her 6 months to get her all her banking documentation approved by the bank. We also have different companies working also in blockchain and SDG, as the European Space Agency and Google, that is using blockchain and IoT to track how vegetation is increasing and evolving in some countries, and the Food and Agriculture Organization from United Nations that with EpiCollect 5 are working to determine how viruses and diseases are growing and expanding in Africa. This is something that from United Nations has been taken into account about how we are using technology. It is good, it is bad. We have to take it as neutral, as Crowther said. But Ban Ki-moon said something that we have to take into account. 30% of donations disappear or get lost in the wheels of administration, corruption, and lack of transparency. That's crazy, but it's something that blockchain can actually solve. We have here in Spain, and with different trusts and agreements from Spain and America, particularly from San Francisco, a company called itwillbe.org and Congo. These companies are non-profit companies, and they are using it actually for tracking donations, and they have also bind the donations that you are doing to third sector projects to the SDG goal. So you can go to these pages, choose your goal, for example, no poverty, or maybe infrastructures, or maybe energy, and you can make your donation with plenty of knowledge of where your money is going. I will also like to talk about the Building Blocks World Food Program. They are using blockchain and IoT with the biometric system that they have for refugees in United Nations, for all the packages of food that they are giving to Syrian people. It's also true that they are using it in Jordan and Pakistan. About blockchain, I want you to think about this phrase of one of the counselors of the lawyer of Henry Ford. In this case, we have, you may find people when you are talking or when you are passionate, as we are, about blockchain, that say that this is only a fad or only a simple trend. But take into account that in history we have many examples of people saying this, and as Alexander said, we are facing a fourth industrial revolution. We can get some conclusions here. The first of it is that maybe engineers are biased forward building what I say cool stuff rather than selling it. One of the main problems of blockchain is that they don't have a really specific marketing approach, and it's also difficult, as we have said. For example, in Facebook, it's almost impossible to talk about blockchain without having the advertising banned. We also have a maximum that is that governments have to allow other countries to invest in this technology. For example, the European Union has set up a grant that is of 5 million euro for blockchain social projects. So keep an eye on European projects, because if you are working on blockchain and in the third sector, you will be able to invest, and the European Union will give you $5 million to work on it. Also, the governments will have to integrate different blockchains, that I'm sure that Alfonso will talk about the interoperability of blockchains and the issues that it provokes. And it also means regulatory problems. As we face in Spain, it's so difficult to start up a blockchain project. Also, we will have to compete, people compete for jobs and for resources, but computers compete for neither. In this case, I will like to finish with the last quote, that is that indefinite fears about the far future shouldn't stop us from making definite plans about today. In this case, I just want to finish the presentation with saying that use blockchain for good, because it's possible, as we have seen with companies like Congo, or it will be. And finishing with our beloved Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal, that said that only by seeing our world anew, as fresh as the strength as it was to the ancients who saw it first, can we both recreate it and preserve it for the future. Thank you. If you have any doubt, I'm completely available in social media. Thank you.
Yeah.